Morning, Bob, on this frozen morning in the Southern Tier. Welcome to Citizens for a Better Broome podcast.
Andy, good to be with you, folks. Thanks for listening. We're in the frozen wasteland of the Southern Tier in New York. Kind of tired of my friends who live in Florida sending me pictures and comments about the weather down there, although they tell me it was 25 degrees yesterday or 2 days ago in Ocala. So
Wow.
I'm kind of glad that happened to you guys down there in Florida. But anyway, check us out on Facebook. We've got a meeting coming up. Citizens for a Better Broome meets on the first Monday of every month. And in this case for February, it is February the 7th. We do that at 6 p.m. at Thirsty's Tavern out in the front room by the fireplace. Kick around some ideas. We've got some new friends and acquaintances in Vestal who are interested in understanding a little bit better how that town works.
On the police chief getting his payday for retiring.
So please join us. We'll hash these things around in person. And thanks for listening. You can check everything out that we write on bobkingsley.com. I understand that something I wrote about COVID was published in the Vestal Town Crier this week. So I'm happy that they're able to do that. Other than that, what do we got going on, Andy?
Well, something that just popped up yesterday, and there's a little bit of blowback. This is a national story, but just the Democratic Party just eats its young. It just can't help itself. This story of the Supreme Court nominee, Justice Breyer, came out yesterday morning saying that he was going to retire. It turns out that he's not going to retire. They just threw him under the bus, from what I can see.
Yeah, it was like was it Roosevelt said my death was premature? Or Dewey beats
Truman.
Front page news. Truman. Dewey beats Truman, right?
Exactly.
Well, I thought that was a little bit suspect because it wasn't Breyer who came out. It was just word has it that obviously somebody's trying to
put pressure
not
on
only
him.
Trying to toss him under the bus, but actually shoved him under, just like the homeless people do to the people on the subway train. Just shove them down on the third rail.
Well, speaking of these Democratic troubles, Governor Hochul's meeting with battled Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. This guy is the soft on crime DA who was elected by citizens of Manhattan. It's not that he was appointed. People must agree with him that it's okay to carry an unloaded pistol around, an unloaded handgun, and not being a felony, or that is
well,
a little bit
down from a robbery to a misdemeanor. My understanding was if you committed a robbery, well, it would be an armed robbery with or without bullets in the gun. If it has no bullets, we're going to kick that down to an A misdemeanor. That's insane.
Well, and that gets into Eric Adams, the new New York City, the new mayor of New York City, wanting to look at bail reform and the transparency on how the judges hand down bail decisions. Obviously, it's not working. And with the new police chief that they brought in from out of town to work more on diversity and work on soft on crime type of agenda. And what happens in the first month? 2 officers go down.
Well, even before that, the first thing he does as the incoming, we're talking now about Adams, he takes his retired brother, who was an NYPD sergeant, and makes him head of his security detail at I think $144K a year.
Gotta love it.
Or it was 244, one of the two. He pulls him out of retirement in Florida somewhere, brings him up to make him head of his security detail. When he gets called on a nepotism thing, he says, well, I really trust my brother and blah, blah, blah. So in other words, you can't trust the 40,000 members of the NYPD, right?
Yeah.
But your brother, who made it as far as a sergeant, he's the man, right? Give me a break. This guy's just another more of the same politician that New York City is so famous for.
Well, and that brings up another point here. So New York City, the new mayor says, well, we're the safest big city as far as the murder rate in the United States across the country. Well, then it is true. There were 485 murders based on a population of 8.5 million. But the gold star goes out to Chicago, where they have 800 plus murders already, or for 2021, with a population 2.7 million. So if you if you extended that out to say 3 times the population of Chicago equals New York City, that would be 2,400
3,000
murders.
murders. Yeah, it's crazy. When you talk about the murder rate in New York, it being in the hundreds, and your success, you think that's a success. That's a murder, one more than one a day. I mean, if you tell a tourist coming across the George Washington Bridge, listen, somebody's going to get murdered today, maybe 2, but it's only 1 or 2. So best of luck to you. See you on Broadway.
Well, and that
Jesus.
gets back to, we talked about this last week about the violence and the crime and the drugs, which are the drugs are the center of all this violence. In a town of Greene, New York, close to us, a shooting a few days ago. And there isn't a beautiful, sleepy upstate community than in the village of Greene. And to have
it's happening all around us, and now it's happening to us. It never really makes a difference to a lot of people till it happens to their brother-in-law, to their niece, something. And now we're feeling it creeping up closer and closer.
Well, this is where the state legislature has to step up, and the new governor has to step up and talk about bail reform, because there's no incentive for good behavior. There's no bad behavior is being rewarded. Crime element and this drug element doesn't seem to any way to eradicate it. It's ongoing. Driving out citizens is driving out as we educate our kids for the next jobs in Florida and Texas.
Andy, this goes back to the Cuomo days, both Mario and Andrew, when they flung open the doors of the mental hospitals in New York. If you remember that, it affected Binghamton directly at 425 Robinson Street, where there used to be a big mental health institute. And the deal back then was that the large political force in the state had determined that telling mentally ill people that they had to take certain medicines to stay on track violated their civil rights. Well, of course it did. Telling people they have to do something, it naturally violates their civil rights. But under certain conditions, and mental illness, I would suggest, is one of them, you suspend your civil rights in some regards because you're not capable of making a decision. So anyway, what happened was a lot of people walked away from their treatments, and there was no real good way to get people back into treatments. Okay. So you've got a bunch of mentally ill people who say, the hell with it, I'm not taking the treatment. Then you add alcohol and drugs to that concoction, and now you've got legitimate crazy people. Right. Then you take bail reform and you tell them not only that, we're not going to keep them in the jail because they're too crazy. We can't keep them in here. So you drop the bail requirements. What the hell do you think's going to happen?
The cities are emptying out.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to look like the Apocalypse Now movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's your problem. I mean, these are huge problems, and maybe good intentions began because I'm sure there were abuses of people that were mentally ill. Okay, I get it. But now the abuse factor is back on the public. We're the ones being abused by a system that's abandoned us.
And again, that's where the bail reform has to be looked at. And this is where the state legislature, the Senate, the new governor has got to come forward and stop this wave of violence that is infecting every town, every village, every community in the state.
Well, just think about how effed up these officials are. They want to tell people with severe mental illness that they cannot be compelled to do anything. They want to tell criminals, the criminal element, that don't worry about it. We've got bail reform. And they want to tell you and me, Mr. Citizen, go get a jab or we won't give you a heart transplant.
Right. And then they fight over the mask mandate. My gosh.
Now, they want your 2-year-old in pre-K to have a mask on all day, yet it doesn't affect kids this way at all.
And it doesn't work.
Science, my ass, these people are out of their freaking minds. They're not only soft on crime, they're pro-crime. Okay. Pro-crime. I don't know what the end game is here from George Soros and his crowd, but it ain't good. It isn't good. There is no safety net anymore for those of us who pay taxes, play by the rules, and want society to be the kind of place your kids don't flee from and leave the state. And
which is
who
what's
the hell
happening.
Wants to live in New York?
Right.
Who wants to live in New York?
Well,
we're stuck here.
Well, we're going to scale this.
Here.
That's right. Well, on a happier note, to finish this episode up, going through some of the interesting developments in the last couple of weeks where the Oakdale Mall, this Spark JC is revamping the mall. Apparently has changed hands.
Yes.
Another story here is the former O'Neill building plot, which is in downtown Main and State Street. It's going to be a mixed use commercial residential. This DeQuayne Jones, which is an NFL player that's from Johnson City, opening up a tavern, as well as two large multi-unit apartment buildings going to get built, which is to me that, that the community needs it.
It's all good as long as it's private money and nothing's getting piloted into a no tax situation, only to be abandoned in 5 years. I mean, that's great. If people want to invest private money into private enterprise, that is exactly what should be happening. But let's make sure that it happens above board and that there's no secret deals being made so that we're stuck with a half developed piece of property in 3 or 4 years. It's happened before.
And we'll keep an eye on it. The beer and wine sales going into the movie theaters, that'll spark some activity.
Hey, Andy, rumor has it, remember our buddy John Schaefer, the town supervisor in Vestal.
Right.
Here's the guy who tried to slide a $250,000 payment to the former police chief under the door in the middle of the night on a rainy Monday between Christmas and New Year. Would only let 4 people into the meeting room that Vestal does business in. Yeah, rumor has it that when it came time to swear in the police chief, though, 50 invited guests in the same room. I guess the COVID thing doesn't matter to anybody except to people he doesn't like.
It's
or doesn't
it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
beauty.
Thanks, Bob.
Folks, please do thanks for listening. Do join us February 7th, 6:00 Thursdays, where we can kick this around in person. Andy, thanks for your participation. Folks, Citizens for a Better Broome on Facebook, bobkingsley.com for the written material. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll check you next time.
Okay, thank you.